Thank you. Welcome back to More Up North. And this is one of my other favorite parts of the show is our panel. And it's always kind of fun to figure out who's willing to come in and who's not. That's always curious too. But what's really funny is when someone says, who else is on the panel? Because that's really what makes it fun. So I'm really glad that our panelists are here tonight. Christy Harvey is here. She's the Director of Strategic Communications at the Center for American Progress, and she is a regular contributor to national radio hosts like Tom Hartman and the Young Turks, and used to be a regular on with now Senator Al Franken, who would sing her a song every morning. It was glorious, and she also co-hosts Studio 1080 on KUDO Anchorage. So Christy, I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
And Craig Medred has been a reporter in Alaska for more than 30 years. Good Lord, man. Really?
It's a long time.
It's longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, you don't look a
I
day
started in TV and Fairbanks, and I was just thinking about it now because we had the only camera in the state at the time, and it was 16 millimeter, and it took forever to process the film. Weighed more than all the cameras in this room combined.
Oh my goodness. He's the former outdoors writer for the Anchorage Daily News and is now writing for the Alaska Dispatch. And Maya Nolan, well, I don't know if you hired him or not, but she's the managing editor at the Alaska Dispatch. Prior to that, she contributed to the Arts Review and features in the Anchorage Daily News. And Maya blogs at ownthesidewalk.com, which is, we've had great discussions about what shoes to wear over on that site. Well, I'm really glad that the two of you came in because you're former ADN. Sorry if this is destroying some of the therapy you've been working through. But ADN is slipping away very quickly, and you've been here the longest, Craig. Can you talk about sort of the good old days of journalism in Alaska? Julie Haskett.
The good old days when the Daily News won Pulitzer Prizes and sank the conservative Anchorage Times and was going to rule the world and do great things.
Yeah.
The days before it spent billions of dollars buying Knight Raider and is now tied to a sinking ship. It's, I mean, the problems are financial. It's simple. They must produce big profits here, as most of the outlying McClatchy publications do, to keep the whole business from going under.
So it's financial at this point.
It's totally financial. I mean, they are under orders to produce large profits, and they have to, or McClatchy goes down. And there is no newspaper. It may go down anyway. It certainly, in the process, has really diminished the product that is available to the local consumer.
Well, do you remember when you were a kid and you went like in the gym at your grade school, and then you went back there as an adult and you're like, oh my God, this thing is a shed, right? Maybe it's just your memory and how you see things, but I used to remember the ADN being more than a pamphlet. I mean, now it's like really
it's
sort
like
of skinny.
anorexic.
It is. It's anorexic, bulimic. I don't know what happened, but there's not a lot in there that's local. What is, there are some great reporters still there, and they're working very, very hard. They're working harder probably than they ever have, but we don't have a lot of local news. We just don't. We don't have the people on board to do that.
Which is where I think, I don't know if it came from McClatchy, I don't know if it came locally, but that's where I think they kind of missed the bus when they downsized. Speaking as someone who, came of age with the internet, didn't grow up with the internet, but, everyone had email by the time I was in college. I mean, people my age, if we want to read the New York Times, we read the New York Times online. So when you get the daily newspaper the next day and all it has is, some local news and then mostly reprinted stories from other sources, you've already read them somewhere. So what the Daily News really should have had to offer is great local news, and it doesn't seem like that's been a priority, which is, it's sad. It's really sad.
It's been a priority. It's just a hard thing for journalists to do. They sit around in those budget meetings. They want to be a local newspaper. When I was still there, they were talking about being a local newspaper. They still talk about being a local newspaper, but then they sit around and go, oh, this story is really important, and we really need to put it on the front page. And all of a sudden, they've eaten up what is now a small hole for news with a national story because it's so important, and it's very hard for them to get beyond the idea that everybody already knows that story. You're not bringing anything to the table, so you're going to have to look beyond it. And frankly, some of the readers might, I mean, there are people who only read the newspaper to this.
Right.
I'm not one of them. I don't even know if I know any, but there are people like that, and some of them might be offended to not get that bit of national news that's important there. So they're in a very tough spot.
Right, and whoever throws that orange bag in front of their cave every day, I can't worry about. So Christy, you deal with a lot of national stuff. So is this a problem that's just going on in Alaska? I can't imagine it is, that this sort of homogenization of the news, because, I mean, people react to what they hear and what their knowledge is. And if we're all getting the exact same news with a couple of like cornflakes left of local, that's not really the full meal deal.
It is, and I think, you hear a lot about the 24-hour news cycle to be to blame. And once they started taking a story and trying to beat the next deadline, which was 15 minutes from 15 minutes ago, and fill all of this great expanse of nothingness with the few stories, the stories started to get watered down. People started looking for these very small angles on the stories, and everyone wanted to be part of those things that were on CNN, MSNBC, and not fleshing out local stories as much, or taking a story and spending 2 weeks to really flesh it out and do the investigative work and write these longer, big pieces. Those are going the way of the dinosaur. You have to go to magazines like Harper's or things like that
Right.
to find them, whereas in the old days, you would find them in places like the ADN or the Delaware State News or the local paper that everybody got.
So, Craig, can you speak to that? Because I know that
Well, it's a McDonaldization of news. I mean, they want it in neat, chewy little segments. I don't know how many people in here are a Jon Stewart fan, but he's kind of like one of the best newsmen out there these days. And he did a great rip on CNN the other day that even when they do talk panels now, it often ends with, well, they'll have to end it there. And he's sort of like, end it there. All you do is news. You've got 24 hours. What do you mean you'll have to end it there? But that is kind of the way the business has become. We want it really short. We want it condensed. We want it simple. And the world's not a simple place. Unless you're Sarah Palin, who, as you notice, really sells now.
she does. Sarah
get 'em
Palin
started.
pushes
And
the
she
news.
is about simple.
Don't get 'em started.
She knows how to recognize simple.
Well, and she's figured out how to work the news system. If you look in history at the political soundbite, back in the 60s and 70s, the average televised political soundbite was 19 seconds. And today, I think the last thing I saw was that it's 6.
Drill, baby, drill. How long does that take?
She's mastered it, unfortunately, and as she's figured out, either it's as Sarah goes, so goes the nation, or she's figured out where the news cycle is and how to put herself into it to maximize her exposure.
Why don't you quit making stuff up?
Yeah, stop making stuff
Well, she
up.
is. I mean, you got to give her credit. She's a master at it. I mean, a one-line Facebook attack on Rahm Emanuel for the use of the word retarded, and off we go. I mean, would it have been better if he said you're some special needs F-bombers? I mean, what is?
Right.
I mean, what is the big deal of a retarded? But she's got, she sees that niche, she grabs that niche, she does that soundbite, and all of a sudden the whole news cycle is preoccupied with what Sarah Palin said.
And now we're going to change every place in the country in any sort of legal legislation or documents that say the word retarded because Sarah Palin is offended. And well, can we also quit saying the word stupid because that might offend her too? Because, I mean, this is just, it's getting too far. It really is.
I'm offended that you feel that way.
But she isn't a miracle worker. Who else could get Rahm Emanuel and Rush Limbaugh to agree on anything? I mean, come on, give her that.
There
I
is,
don't have to apologize to anybody.
there is that, but the whole issue of having the same 4 stories on every single network every night. And what gets left out are things like people not getting fish runs for Alaskans. I mean, we've got floods, we've had people starving, we've got subsistence issues, we've got Point Hope today. There was the trial for the caribou massacre of the century that happened up there that ended up to be 2 caribou by the time the court was done dealing with it. So, these sort of issues that are outlying Alaska, were I to live outside of Anchorage or the road system, I would feel very alienated by any news that's being produced here. I just would. I wouldn't even know where to look. And I don't know if they're just plugging into satellite dish and looking at what's going on in the rest of the world, but that doesn't help them either. I mean, we have what they're calling now climate refugees, where they're moving whole towns, and there's 25 towns on a list. You don't really hear about it. So how do we go from that sort of huge picture of the news? Because really, who gives a rat's ass if she was offended by what Rahm Emanuel said in a private movie or a private meeting? I mean, how does that affect our lives? There are people taking care of kids with Down syndrome today that don't care. They've got bigger fish to fry, like infections or learning disabilities.
I don't know how you change that, because really when you get down to it, it's market driven. And what you're getting is what newspapers, TV stations, radio stations think you will buy. and that is this kind of really pre-digested, short, simple. I mean, you're not going to pick up your newspaper or many websites and get a really thorough discussion of healthcare. I mean, everything you've seen now has been
Death panels.
yeah, it's simplistic to the lowest
Yeah,
common
but I think
denominator.
this is where we're supposed to flog our website.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Alaska Dispatch does not do that.